On today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers facing elimination in Game 5, now down 3-1 in this series against the New York Knicks. Why has Donovan Mitchell struggled so much in these past couple games? What does he need to do to be able to get back to the success that he had in Game 1? How concerning are the rebounding issues for the Cavs team, a team that was the number one defense in the NBA this season? What adjustments can we expect ahead of Game 5? All that and more coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Next game, how about Jason Tatum to score more than 26.5 points? What about LeBron James to have more than 7.5 rebounds? How about Kevin Durant to have less than 6.5 assists? Or what about Steph Curry to have more than 3.5 three-pointers made? So what is Prize Picks? It's daily fantasy sports, but how does it work? Basically, you pick 2 to 6 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 25 times back on your money on any entry that you submit. There's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. And Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That's NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA. They've got you covered for all of the action over at Prize Picks. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that simple. They're safe. They offer fast withdrawals. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. So don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Cavs, Chris Manning. You can follow wherever you listen to your podcasts and on YouTube. Just search Locked On Cavs. And Chris, Cavs going down 3-1 now, facing elimination as the series will shift back to Cleveland for Game 5. Let's start with Donovan Mitchell here because he was sensational in Game 1 of this series. Then Game 2, not quite the scoring output, but, facilitating at a very high level. And then really struggling here in each of the last 2 games in New York, just averaging 16.5 points per contest, not great efficiency, 6 turnovers in both of these games. What needs to happen for Mitchell to get back to the way that he played in Game 1?
I kind of can't believe, Jackson, he hasn't been as assertive. This has been a big game player all year. This has been a guy that, dating back to the bubble, has had these big playoff performances, and I don't think he's been very assertive. It feels like he is waiting for things to kind of come to him, or when he does take shots, he misses 1 or 2, and it doesn't work, and just something feels off with him. He said post-game that, it's on him, he takes responsibility, but they need a big Mitchell performance. Their chances of winning the series are basically 0 already. I think they're at 0 if they don't get bigger games for Mitchell. I think they need to run him more at Brunson and attack Brunson directly. Those have been the most profitable possessions for Cleveland, but they need Mitchell to be assertive, be aggressive. I feel like he's kind of taken a backseat the last couple of games, and it's made the Cavs absolutely worse.
You talk about the assertiveness from Mitchell. I mean, how have you felt he's just kind of handled this series, right? He's the one player on this Cavs roster with extensive postseason experience. How do you think he's kind of handled being like the leader of this group through this postseason so far?
I think this is one of those moments where Cleveland all year has kind of openly talked about that they don't have like a fiery kind of guy. Like they don't have like a guy to really spark them. That's not Mitchell's personality either. But if there's ever a moment where you needed him to maybe try to find that, this maybe would have been the series. But it also feels like this is, for whatever reason, I don't know. I'm not in New York. I don't know if he would even say this honestly publicly, but I'm sure like him playing at the Garden has not been, it's been weird, and I'm sure that's affected him. He said way back when he went back to Utah that it was harder for him to go to New York for the first time than it was for him to go back to Utah. And I wonder if this has been a weird environment for him. I wonder if he's feeling it from the crowd, and then that has to extend to everybody else. It just seems like he is off. Like every part of Mitchell is off right now. He had a Game 1 where he scored a bunch, but made some mistakes. He talked about it. Game 2, he really settles into assisting a bunch. In the last 2 games, he's been nothing. He had 2 points, Jackson, in the second half. That feels like a guy who's just in a weird space in this series for whatever reason.
This Cavs team was the number 1 defense in the NBA this season. That's where they've, made so much of their success. But for some reason, throughout the season and even bleeding now into the postseason, there's been this issue, kind of the concern, I guess, with the rebounding element, closing out defensive possessions strong. And with a front court that features Jarrett Allen, Evan Mobley, I mean, how concerning are these rebounding issues where at times in this series, right, you're seeing like Josh Hart out rebound the Cavs front court. Like, how concerning is that?
It's massively concerning. That's been the backbreaker. I mean, Mitchell Robinson is dominating Jarrett Allen. Isaiah Hartenstein is dominating Jarrett Allen. Cleveland has these rebounding issues because once they go away from Mobley Allen lineups, they skew kind of small. You see Jetty Osman at the 4, Karis LeVert at the 4. Like, they're not playing real traditional 4s, particularly once Kevin Love gets bought out and Dean Wade couldn't kind of fit into the rotation. They skew smaller. And the Knicks are this team that has Josh Hart, who is one of the best rebounding wings in the league, and Mitchell Robinson, who is killing them, who's just absolutely out hustling them everywhere. There was a play in the third quarter, maybe of this game, in game 4, where Isaiah Hartenstein chases down a rebound that Karis LeVert just decided not to go after, and Evan Mobley decided not to chase down. And there's just also, on top of the schematic things and all of that, it just felt like hustle. I hate using this as a cliche, but these are one of the moments where I think the Knicks straight up just have wanted it more. They've wanted it more. They've wanted to get rebounds. They've wanted to do the dirty stuff. And that's been the big separator on the glass and in the series.
It seems like kind of all series long, the Cavs really kind of haven't had an answer yet for Jalen Brunson and his offensive output. But now, as the series is kind of ramped up here in Game 4, we saw RJ Barrett have the best game of this series so far. He's steadily kind of improved as the series has gone along. I mean, what adjustments would you maybe like to see out of the Cavs here in Game 5 to slow down one, if not both of those guys, ideally?
I think you're hoping with Barrett that he goes back to what he was in Game 1 and Game 2. Being a little uncomfortable not at home. I think he's looked much better in MSG, and I wonder if there is just a little like, hey, he's at home getting kind of boosted. With Brunson, I think they just need to play Okoro more. I know he has the warts on the shooting, but if you look at a lot of the outlying metrics, you look at the Knicks' offensive rebounding rate when Okoro's on the floor, you look at their offensive rating when he's on the floor, Okoro has been their best option on Brunson. Brunson is still going to score. He's too good not to hit pull-ups, get buckets, whatever. But he's cooking Jetty Osman alive. He's going to cook Karis LeVert alive. Mitchell's going to have to defend him as well at times, but I think they need to play Okoro more and trust that identity. This team is never going to be a team that beats the Knicks offensively, and particularly they're not going to beat them offensively when you're relying on Jetty Osman to be your offensive wild card. I think they have to lean on Okoro, ride out some of the bad stuff with him, trust him to make enough plays, hit a couple threes here and there, and just hope that's enough to at least get Game 5 and extend the series back to New York.
Yeah, so that was going to be my final question for you. Is just, I mean, when you look at kind of the X factor to kind of maybe shift this series back in, maybe not back in Cleveland's favor, but at least give them a fighting chance in Game 5. I mean, how much do you weigh that offensive versus defensive identity? Because this is a Cavs team that in 4 games now, they've failed to crack 100 points in 3 of them, right? So, I mean, is it a team that has to basically just lean fully into their defensive identity, or are they kind of towing the line here by trying to lean too much into like Karis LeVert and other guys offensively?
I think it is a little bit of column A, column B, but I think, Jackson, I go back to what I thought about at the beginning of the series. I thought that one of the Knicks' biggest advantages, aside from tactical stuff that has given the Cavs problems in their regular season series, is that they knew what they are. They know what they are as a hustle team, as a rebounding team. Tibbs has been a much better coach throughout the series than JB Bickerstaff. It's not even been close. The gap has been massive in that department. But that team has this identity, knows what its rotations are, knows what to mix and match when they need to, knows what levers to pull. You can see in the series that JB Bickerstaff does not know what levers to pull, and that leaves you searching for identity. That leaves you searching for structure. That's how you get Ricky Rubio playing 6 minutes out of nowhere. That's how you get Okoro just getting yanked after he misses 2 shots, and it's like, well, can't do that. There's just no trust, it feels like, in what this team is. And for a team that won 51 games with great net rating, great defense, that's really troubling. It is completely unraveled. And even if they win Game 5, it feels like this one's over in 6. I think it's just, you got to kind of find a core identity again. And if they can't, this could be over on Wednesday, which would be frankly shocking considering how good Cleveland was the regular season. I don't think anyone saw this being a 5-game kind of Knicks mollywhopping in some ways.
For an in-depth breakdown of this game and all the postseason action, you'll have us covered over at Locked On Cavs. Chris, I appreciate you stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
Anytime, Jackson.